The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Now, you might be wondering about the tape in the tube here that I've got on my face. I had a medical procedure, of course, all good, nothing dramatic, just an upgrade to my technology so that I can process things way faster. Ha ha ha, dad joke, of course, especially since my kids have always said since they were little that my veins are made of cables because I'm a technologist. So, but let's get started. I want to jump into today's episode, and we're going to tackle a critical cybersecurity topic, which is why DMARC isn't a set it and forget it solution. While it's essential for preventing phishing and spoofing, DMARC requires the ongoing monitoring to stay effective. Joining us today, we have two special guests. We have Mike Anderson, who's the Global Channels Director at EasyDMARC, and Nate Schmitt, who is the Director of Cybersecurity at CIT, a leading MSP based out of Minneapolis. And today we're going to break down some of the common DMARC pitfalls and why MSPs need to stay proactive. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our two guests. We've got Mike Anderson and Nate Schmitt. How you guys doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dan.
Yeah, great to have you guys here. Beautiful day here in Michigan, and hopefully it's getting nice where you guys are at.
Yeah, it's the I think first day over 70 in about 9 months. So
that's a good thing.
Nice. Of course, Mike, down in Texas, it's probably always warm though, right?
Sunny and 75 here today.
Gotta love it. Tis the season. So, Mike, you and I've had many great discussions about DMARC and the importance of preventing spoofing, building trust for our clients, proving deliverability. But I wanted to expand on those conversations by bringing in Nate. He's, of course, an MSP who's mastered DMARC management for his clients. And I want to have him share some of our insights. But before we dig in deeper, Nate, can you share some of the details of CIT?
Yeah, so we're a full service MSP here in Minneapolis. So we do everything from your IT help desk, the professional services, app dev, low voltage cabling, cybersecurity, and procurement as well. So we have about 160 employees today, a couple hundred customers, 20 plus thousand endpoints under our management. So yeah, we've been around since about 1992. And again, kind of headquarters out of Minneapolis, the Woodbury area, but our employees are kind of scattered throughout the United States.
That's awesome. And it's just ironic that you're in Minneapolis, of course, the airport MSP, right? And MSP and MSP.
I think it's been rated the nation's best multiple years in a row.
You know what? I love that airport. I love all the shops. When you have layover, there's, it's a great way to kill some time.
Absolutely.
And spend a bunch of money.
Exactly. So that's definitely one airport that I don't bring my wife to because I know she would shop. So, kind of as we jump in a little bit deeper here, there are a lot of, misconceptions. And Mike, I wanted to chat with you about this. What would you say some of the biggest misconceptions that MSPs have about DMARC management?
Yeah, the probably the biggest question I get, they're convinced that, using a DMARC analytics tool like EasyDMARC, best of breed, okay, this is the way to go. But why would I continue to pay for it? Why would I continue to monitor it? We hear them all the time. Don't you just set it and forget it? Well, that would be like saying, hey, we're going to provide a firewall service. We're just going to set it and forget it. Or we're just going to provide endpoint or AV and set it and forget it. Why would you ever do that? And so the reasons we talk through with the MSPs is, number one, first and foremost, we all know on this call, any MSP watching this, is customers add things to their environment all the time and fail to tell you. Now, when you have their policy set to reject in DMARC, if they add a new source, let's just say it's their invoicing, and then their DMARC settings are not correct, and you have them set at reject. Now you're rejecting all their invoices. You're not monitoring it. They're not monitoring it. It may be 2 months before they realize it. Now they're 30,000 down in revenue. When they figure it out, you as an MSP, do you really want to take that call from the customer? Because you're likely to get fired. I mean, that's just part of it. Sometimes sources change from the sender. Again, you don't get the memo. You don't know. They don't know. Same thing. Thirdly, websites change. A lot of times people are doing websites. MSPs a lot of times don't manage the web development. So when the DNS changes with the new website change, now all their lead forms from the website back to the home office, those are being rejected. They're not getting any new leads. Third time in a row, you're going to get that call. That's going to be the last time that happens. They're looking for a new provider. And then, you see some threat analysis on our platform, and it gives the IP address. If you're providing firewall services for an MSP, maybe you want to blacklist those IP addresses from all those threats that are coming out from all around the world. Those are just 4 good reasons why, DMARC is not set it and forget it, just like any other cybersecurity offering that your MSPs have.
Yeah, and Nate, you could probably attest to that too. Especially in the age of shadow IT, where someone maybe makes a change with their email marketing solution, and they do it on the fly, right?
I've been sitting here smiling because I hope my marketing team watches this later, but I always give them grief because it is the marketing teams that are always testing out new mailing solutions, right?
Yeah.
So usually when we have our DMARC set to reject, and usually it'll be my marketing team saying, "Hey, I can't send out email. Can you help me out?"
Exactly.
I found that they implemented some new tool.
Yep, exactly. And Nate, I know in the past you were using another DMARC solution, and you stumbled upon EasyDMARC at an IT conference. What challenges did you guys face with ongoing DMARC management before switching over to EasyDMARC?
Yeah, we tried a few of them. I probably won't go into too many names here, but there's really the difference is going to be the reporting, the ease, and also the flexibility, I guess. And so in the mail, like the spam filtering solutions, what I found is, you can implement a DMARC policy just fine. Where the challenges come in is the actual reporting to provide actionable data to actually start correcting it. Sometimes you really struggle your way through that. And then also those typically aren't MSP friendly, right? It's whoever the customer or client is, it's their system. So you'd have to first log into their email system, and then you can hop into the DMARC tool. And then there's other platforms out there that, to be honest, at the time I thought was best of breed, and they just hadn't ever really innovated. And so it quickly became stale. I thought the reporting was best of breed at the time, but then we started running into challenges such as, the SPF flattening. And they said, just take this, we'll automatically generate a flat record for you. And then it causes its own issue saying, well, now I've got 150 IPs and I don't know what belongs to anything. So now we have to go document what all the IPs are, and then they're changing. And we know that customers are changing their environments all the time. And then you start hitting the actual record limits, and just because you've created too many characters within that record, so that causes its own challenges. And so really, when we found EasyDMARC, we actually compared a couple of them at that conference as well. And I ran across Mike, and we started talking. And the main drivers for us was EasyDMARC was extremely MSP friendly, same price that we were paying before with some of the other solutions. It's multi-tenanted, to where you can have your different customers within like domain groups and everything, and you can grant them access to their own domain groups within there. They have the integrations with the PSA tooling to be able to manage, the counts and the pricing and the SKUs. And then from there, it's also able to really solved the additional challenges that we were running into with the other solutions with their Easy SPF, to where rather than having to create all these different text records, you put in one CNAME record. And now for my technicians, as they are trying to manage DMARC at scale, we're not having to always log into all of these, Namecheap, GoDaddy, NS providers.
Right.
You can just go straight into the portal and say, let's update it from, a none to a quarantine or quarantine to a reject. So it's one portal. And as an MSP, we are looking for efficiencies, right?
Yeah.
To be able to have to spend all this time hopping into all these name server or, registrars takes significant amount of time rather than just one connection, one button to update a CNAME record.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the time, the limited amount of time that MSPs have, anything you can do to, chop something off, save keystrokes, is critical. And, especially you mentioned, and Mike has brought this up many times, on each of our calls, that as far as updating, I do know, we've had several conversations where Mike's like, hey, we got this new feature enhancement, and there's always something new. So that I can connect with what you're saying there. So that's great. Now, Mike, as far as the whole, why DMARC isn't a one-time setup, what are the risks that businesses face if they neglect that?
Yeah. So we teach all of our MSPs. This is about two things: avoiding domain fraud through email, risk mitigation, and avoid your emails not being sent. Right. Those are two powerful things that an MSP, right? MSPs are in the risk mitigation business, right? You're not in the sales and marketing growth business. You're there to mitigate risk with IT and software and systems, right? So your number one thing should be saying, hey, your email and domains are at risk for being defrauded, and your email is not being delivered correctly. Hey, we're an MSP. We can fix that. We should have a conversation to mitigate that risk. And so, we've built the program where the MSPs can clearly see what that is and address it back to the customer. The customer sees real value in, the MSP addressing business pain and financial pain, right? If your invoices aren't getting through, again, like I mentioned, and your lead generation's not working, I mean, those are real devastating actions against a business, and most small businesses can't withstand that. And really, quite frankly, Nate and company, when they're going in, he's looking for efficiency, and he's created that. But now, you're able to connect with prospects and your customers saying, hey, you had a real business problem. We solved it. You create an emotional connection that's, hard to break after that. You talk about making a customer for life. You go in and solve a real business challenge, like, your email is not being delivered and your invoices aren't being delivered. You'll have a customer for life.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nate. Good.
Sorry. I'll give two real world examples from here in Minnesota, just about some of the risks. So this one comes before anyone was even really talking about DMARC, but it could have been mitigated with it. Is there was a local county here in Minnesota that reached out to us saying something's going on. Can you help out? So I came in, did my review, found out they had an account compromise in the past. So, but when the person got in, they were able to obtain records of all the residents that were, had their water bills and everything running through the city. So they had all that contact info. But because something like DMARC was not implemented, the threat actor was then impersonating or spoofing the domain of the city or the county and saying, your water bill is past due. Last month it was this. Now you need to, redirect payment, or, you're late. Please submit payment. And they started collecting the residents' water payments, and then the county started having to deal with the ramifications of that. So again, one real world example that I personally was involved in. This one I wasn't involved in, but I do have connections to the higher education space here in Minnesota as well. So this is more enterprise. Not everyone deals with enterprise, but there's a university here in Minnesota that about 10 years ago now, they had DMARC fully implemented, but they were using a third party to send out all of their student acceptance emails, every summer as these new seniors are supposed to be coming in. And the vendor switched their IP on them and did not notify the university of this change.
Yeah.
And so what happened was none of the emails going out to students to inform them that they've been accepted to the university went out. Now they still sent out mailing, packets to everyone, but by that time, many of the students had already accepted at other universities. Their enrollment dropped significantly. And over the course of the 4 years that student would have been there, that one event cost them actually a couple $1 million. And it's all because one vendor switched their IP. So DMARC monitoring may have at least notified them saying your vendor switched your IP, and now you start seeing all these non-compliant things. But because it had persisted for quite some time and they're still manually reviewing those XML records, it caused major financial loss.
Wow. Yeah, so talk about out of sight, out of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't have that visibility, the ramifications of that are substantial. And and who does that go back to? Goes back to IT, right? And who's managing that IT? Even though, because again, we always joke, it's always our fault. The joke that we used to have is, the CEO is like, hey, since you guys have been here, our microwave isn't working. It's there's always some way to point it back to IT. And, it's so critical for us to be able to help mitigate those type of risks that could point it back to us. So, and the other thing too, Mike, when you talk about those invoices, the number one thing that my business mentor, said to me, decades ago is cash is king. Cash is king. And when it comes down to payroll, or I'm sorry, cash flow, it can affect things like payroll. It can affect things like, obviously being able to pay your employees if that cash isn't coming in. So, real risks. And I love these actual stories. Because we could talk about hypotheticals all day long, but when we can paint the picture for them and help illustrate it in a way that allows them to see things differently, it really changes the impact in their view of that. So, another question I have is, for Nate is, how has EasyDMARC helped to simplify and improve your DMARC process?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit earlier. It's those efficiency gains that you really get, is we are able to quickly deploy DMARC for our customers. That really entails two things, right? Is for an MSP, you're looking for efficiency because you have your own labor. And then for the customers, now, and this depends on a little bit of how you package it, maybe to your customers, is that you're either doing some type of T&M charge to get DMARC fully implemented, or it's just included in your services. But to be included in your services, you still need to account for your labor, right? And so that means that you are now having to sell a service at a greater charge if you're doing a lot of manual work. And if you're trying to properly implement DMARC, reviewing XML records or, some type of manual process, you have this significant labor. So being able to use a solution that consolidates that reporting, gives great actionable data on like recommendations of how you can start correcting the DMARC and the mail flow to be able to secure it, it's going to put you in a better position at MSP. Now, a lot of MSPs, obviously, we work together. If you're in close proximity, we're also competitors. So in those cases, though, is you can become more competitive to other people that are doing it inefficiently, because you can lower your costs or keep your costs down long term. So
and I mean, at the end of the day too, is if you don't have this in place, and something occurs where emails aren't getting, those invoices aren't getting out, a ticket's going to get created no matter what. And, so by being proactive, you can help eliminate those issues from happening in the first place. And, I'm sure your clients think and expect that you have their back in all cases, right?
Yeah. DMARC is one of those things that I don't know. I haven't really had customers come to us saying, you know what, I'm super interested in DMARC. Help me out, right? I've had one customer out of our hundreds that said, I sat through a whole webinar about DMARC just so I could learn more about it. So there's only one. Otherwise, everyone else says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just take care of it for me.
Yep. And it truly is one of those things that, they may not know what DMARC is, but they know what it means to get an email sent to, a prospect or a customer, and they get a call and said, hey, your emails are going into my junk mail. Right. So they definitely look at it from a different perspective. And that's where I think that's where, our conversations with them are so critical, that we're having those business outcome conversations. Because it's not what we do, but it's what we do for them that makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
It was really interesting all these years that DMARC has been available, a dozen or plus years, that the adoption rate was only about 1%. There's a couple 100 million domains, several 100 million domains across the world, and only about 1% were DMARC compliant. But when this whole shift last year with all the big sending providers, that DMARC went from optional to mandatory, now all of a sudden your emails weren't being delivered. It was a big deal then. Secure us, keep us safe. Nah, not really that interested. Our emails aren't getting through. Oh, you got to do it now. So the shift in thought process was really interesting. We've always had
I was going to say, I think that's the first time that most of our customers ever learned that DMARC was a thing, when their mail stopped flowing.
Right. And that is, and let me know your thoughts on this too. But when things come down like that, when there's enforcement like that, whether it be something cybersecurity, insurance related, regulatory compliance, or, when, Google and Yahoo put these, these enforcements in place, those help us raise the awareness to things that, may have been putting them to sleep before, and they had no interest in.
Yeah. I know even the latest PCI standards, they start calling out needing to, it's technically not a requirement. It's bundled within the email protection mechanisms, but they did start including language about DMARC within there. And it's becoming more and more prevalent today. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in those regulated spaces.
It's interesting as we go to these shows, when we first started 3 years ago, DMARC was nice to have. Now every show we go to, every talk that we attend, it's standing room only. Our booths are packed.
Yeah.
And so it's, not like we just, magically, transformed, but the requirements across the industry, it just has magnified the importance of it. So everywhere we go, it's like this traveling caravan following us.
Right.
DMARC.
Yeah. It's also a great tool for prospecting. I mean, it is an incredible tool for prospecting. And
And so we use a domain scanning tool that will allow our MSPs, and this is probably our most popular feature on the platform now, solving for DMARC and getting efficient. That obviously makes MSPs like Nate's way more profitable, way more efficient. But solving for DMARC doesn't pay the bills. Charging money, solving for DMARC pays the bills, and then going to get new customers. And so we have done studies and realized that if you can create an emotional connection to a customer through personalized and data-driven engagement, and that's using a risk assessment with the customer's domain and then scanning it and getting a report. And let's say the report says this customer has a high level of risk. Their score from 0 to 10 is a 0. They are in a wasteland, red flashing lights, right? You have the ability to customize that report, download it and send it to the prospect. And so what the studies show is when you present people with personalized and customized data-driven analysis of their own environment, and especially when it's something like, hey, your house is on fire, you might want to put it out. That the statistical likelihood that they'll engage you in a deal is 80% more likely. And so we created this program, the assessment and the outputs around that type of sales technique. And what it does is it gets the customer, for the MSP, a little anxious, right? I'm a little off center. This doesn't sound good, Nate. What do we do? Hey, we're an MSP. We're a DMARC specialist. We can fix it for you. Oh, great. I'm feeling better. You're giving them hope. You're taking them a little bit off center, right, with that anxious feeling, but then you get them back up on the road. And the studies show that, 80% more you're 80% more likely to do a deal, and the satisfaction is increased by 90%. So using our domain scanner to create personalized data-driven risk assessments to your prospect, your ability to close deals go way up. This is not the standard approach. Hey, I'm Mike and I have an MSP. Hey, great, Mike. No offense, but I get 10 calls a week from guys like you. How low can you go? Right now you're competing on price. And so, this is really a new approach, and the studies bear out the fact that if you can create that emotional connection with your customer, your chances of winning a deal skyrocket. And using our risk assessment to do just that has been a proven methodology and factor for our MSPs winning business. In fact, about 75% of our MSPs use the domain scanner to lead with new prospects opening the door.
That's great. And I want, as we wrap things up here, I want to talk a little bit about the revenue stream, the revenue opportunities, because of course, there are multiple ways that we can do this, build it into, the managed services contract. Of course, there's some that just include it automatically. I think there's really no right or wrong, but, we do want to protect our customers, but we should be making money in the same regard as well.
Yeah, I'll take that first, and then Nate, you might talk about how you guys go to market. We really see IT providers and operators charging three ways: for the assessment, for the configuration fees, and of course the monthly reoccurring. Now, how you do all that, whether it's three separate line items or you do the blending it in overall as a number, and where are you at? Is this a new customer? Is it an old customer that you're going to have to bump or somehow manage in? Like Nate said, you've got real working hours. You've got to do a one-time service adjustment because this is a new protocol that has to be done. We teach our MSPs multiple methodologies on how to incorporate this in, whether it's line item, break fix, bundling an MRR, incorporating all of it into an MRR is, it's a lot smoother. You get good profit margins, highly predictable models. Typically the customer is going to be a little bit happier because they don't feel like you're, nickel and diming them, charging all this stuff, on there. And Nate, maybe you have something to share about how you guys go to market.
Yeah, ours is built into just our agreements, right? And kind of the main thing there is, but earlier I said our customers have no idea typically what DMARC is. So as an MSP, you can either sell what DMARC is. So first you have an educational piece to it, and then you can make the sale and then help solve problems. Or you can just say, we've got you taken care of. Right now, every MSP is going to be a little bit different, and depending on where you are you more on the break fix? Are you all the way up in the MSSP space? You'll have to find where you want to do it. But I think Mike also kind of touched on it a little bit there, is the implementation. So yes, you have the monthly reoccurring, but how do you implement it? Sometimes we've seen some cases where, there has to be some type of project or T&M associated with it, especially if you're working with someone who's a non-managed customer, and you're working more in maybe a co-managed environment, or some type of net new customer that hasn't included all of your services quite yet. So it depends on what your model is. I know some MSPs say we don't touch anything unless you come on board and get our full package. Others say we will accept anyone and everyone, no matter how regulated or how painful that agreement might be. We'll work with anyone because we just need the business. So figure out what's best for you. I can say Mike and the EasyDMARC team have been very gracious with the profit margins on the solution. It just depends on where you want to land on how you packages it. If it's just the tool, if it's your services layered on top, it's up to you.
Awesome. And one last thing, Mike, if for MSPs out there, I do know that you have a special offer for members of our Everything MSP community. Could you share a little bit of information on that?
Yeah, so you're going to get a free 2-week trial. Go to EasyDMARC.com. You'll find the pricing page in the MSP section, and you'll be able to get on a free 2-week trial. But for Dan's Everything MSP group, we're going to give you your first month free. So notify us when you get on the trial. Reach out to us. Tell us you're an Everything MSP customer. And when you convert from the trial to the actual paid program, we will give you your first month free. So that's going to give you 6 weeks of actually developing a funnel, closing business, getting the revenue before you ever pay $1. That's a deal you can't refuse.
That's awesome. And there's no doubt that in a 6-week period of time, you can be driving new revenue from that. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and knowledge. Greatly appreciate it. Of course, you can check out EasyDMARC at EasyDMARC.com. If you are on the EverythingMSP.com website, you can also search for EasyDMARC. You can reach out to them directly from there as well. And again, thank you guys both for your time. And for everybody else listening, until next time, we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having us, Dan. Thanks for showing up, Nate. We'll see you, man.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.